Right. So, all right, cool. So I did a ton of research just on a lot of your content and a lot of the things that you've been posting and some different theories and concepts that you have about running a property management company or just a business in general. And so today I just want to dive in, and wherever this goes, it goes. I don't have a direction. I have a lot of questions that I'll ask, and I just want you to kind of answer them and story tell a little bit and share the things that you think have helped you be successful in your career, because you're obviously absolutely killing it and you're everywhere, all over the place. Yes. So
You're way too kind,
I'm super excited to like dive into this. So I'll ask you some questions, but if you have a direction you want to take this, or like this article is meant to be about you and it is going to be published in the magazine and it'll be featured. So, I want you to put the imagery out there that you like. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right. So let's just talk a little bit about property management in general. Just tell me a backstory. How did you get started? What inspired you to come into this industry?
It's, real estate has always been part of my life, in essence, in the background. When I was really young, my dad was not going to raise kids that didn't know how to work. And so on the weekends, instead of playing, it's like, all right, it's time to get up. My brother owned the company, and the siblings worked underneath my brother, and we would go mow lawns all day Saturday for real estate, for property management companies. And so my mom would drive us around at 6 a.m. All right, it's time to go mow. And we're like, we want to go play. She's like, nope, you need to learn how to work. And so at like 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, we were always mowing lawns. And then when my husband wanted to start a business, I always wanted to be in real estate, but I also knew what entrepreneurship would take. And so it kind of scared me as well. And my husband, when we were in college, said, I want to start up my own business. And I said, okay, what business? And he said, I want to start up a Savvy student card. It's a discount card that schools would sell. And we decided, okay. I said, all right, we can do that. And so we moved to Arizona. And as soon as we moved to Arizona, the money stopped. We ended up being on food storage, no food in the fridge, no heat in the home. It was 40 degrees in our home. It was freezing. And I had a little boy at the time, my firstborn. And I knew either my back was up against the wall and I either needed to suck it up and figure out what to do, or we were going to be homeless. And so I found a mentor that would teach me how to analyze properties. And about after the 150th no of telling me I was wrong, he finally came to me and said, I think you're ready. And I turned to him. I said, I would love a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I've been ready for food for a while. And he said, no, I think you're ready for me to loan to you. And I said, what? And I said, I'll do anything. He said, and he looked me dead in the eye and he said, you will, or I'll never do business with you again. And I was scared. Oh, I was so scared. And I said, all right. So we jumped feet in and started investing. Still remember our first property. It was a triplex and did not know what we were doing. We were knocking on doors to get rent. But I realized there was a gap in the market that property management companies didn't know how to analyze properties and help people build generational wealth. And so our first company was born, Rosenbaum Realty Group, and that's how we got into property management.
That's awesome. So how old are you at this point in your journey when he lends you the money and you get this start and you have no idea what you're going to do?
Cool. I was 26. I was 26. We had been on food storage for um almost a year, almost a year.
Okay.
Um, and man, I can't tell you how many times I cried myself to sleep figuring out how am I gonna feed my child or feed me. And yeah, it was scary though, because I remember him looking me dead in the eye and going, if you don't pay me back, I promise you'll never last. And I won't ever do business with you again. So when he told me that, I remember my husband and I were God-fearing people. I remember we went to the living room of where we were living and we just knelt down and I just cried because I was like, you know, I have this opportunity, but at the same time, if I screw up,
Hmm.
you know, I might be done forever.
Yeah.
And so I know that sounds crazy, but at the same time, it scared me. I didn't know what I was doing. But we decided to jump feet first, and it was the best decision we ever made.
That's awesome. So you also mentioned that being an entrepreneur, you were scared of that as well because you knew what it took and you had this vision of what this was going to require from you. Why were you scared to jump in and be this entrepreneur and really step into that role?
Um, I was brought up as a young girl, and my mom and dad are amazing, but I was brought up in a generation that mom stay home, mom stay with her kids, and you're not to work. And I remember going to a religious group one day and being told I'd go to hell if I was a working mom. And that's a culture thing. It wasn't the religion itself. And so it scared me also because I was marrying someone that I didn't know if he understood what it took, to be honest. Because someone can always, it looks great from the outside. Entrepreneurs make a lot of money. They're great. It looks great. They don't see the heartache and the struggle that entrepreneurs go through. And so when my husband wanted to start this company and he had a partner, and I had a really bad feeling about the partner. I just said something's not right. I said, you need to sit down with him and you need to figure out what is his first priority. Because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, I don't care what's going on. You have to make sure that company is almost first priority to get it off the ground. And so he sat down with his partner and he realized school was more important. Everything else was more important before the business. And I said, well, then it's not going to work. And so they left that night to go play racquetball. And I was getting ready for bed. And as clear as day, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was moving to Arizona. And so my husband came home. I said, Daniel, how bad do you want to start a business? He goes, I really do. I want to be an entrepreneur. I said, no, 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 no. I said, do you want to work 80, 100-hour work weeks if that's what it takes? And he goes, he looked at me and he's like, yeah, 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 I do. And it still sounds great, right? But I'm like, when you get into the grind, it's not a matter if you want to do it. It's a matter what's required to make it happen. And so I said, okay, then we're moving to Arizona. And even at this part, someone can say something sounds great, but when you get into the grind, it matters if that person's really going to push forward and go. And we were newly married. I didn't know what kind of work ethic he truly had. And he has great work ethic. But at the end of the day, when you're in the grind, it's not always happy go lucky.
Yeah.
So I knew that because I had seen my great grandfather during the Great Depression started a business. And so he would go knock doors during the day and at night he'd come home and he'd sew it up and the next day he'd go deliver. And it was a grind. I always heard that story. And so I knew you get a business off the ground, it's not going to be 40-hour work weeks. And so it scared me a little bit. Um, but at the end of the day, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always have that drive and I love to be able to create and grow. And I'm a little addicted to it. So,
What do you think it takes to be an entrepreneur? Obviously, you have, long work weeks, but what do you think it really takes?
oh, um, understanding that it's not a matter of what you want to do, it's a matter of what is required. And entrepreneurs at a very young start think they're the best at everything 9 times out of 10. And what that entrepreneur has to do to mind shift and to level up on a daily basis is not just being a business owner. Every amount of income you start bringing in, and every new employee you hire, you have to all of a sudden go, okay, what are these personalities? What you're managing people. No longer are you a property manager. That's why when people come to me and go, oh, you're property management. No, I don't. I don't deal with the owners. I don't deal with tenants. It's more about managing the whole company and the team and leveling up on a daily basis. I think that's the biggest issue with the entrepreneurs. They have to start here and figure out how to grow themselves to be that leader to be able to run the company.
So you're saying you own a property management company, but that's not what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs manage people. Entrepreneurs lead people. Entrepreneurs remove barriers from people. Like you don't do a lot of property management today.
I do not talk to owners. I do not talk to tenants. I do one-on-ones. I look at org charts. I look at numbers. I don't. So when they say, "Oh, you're a property manager," we know. Oh, and they ask me about my companies, and I said, "No, I manage the companies. I manage people." And even then, it's like I manage a leadership team. And when people realize that it's that's why when someone can ask me, "Hey, I love property management. I want to be in property management. I want to run a property management company." I said, "Do you want to run a property management company, or do you really want to be a property manager?" And those are two different things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Running a property management company, you're leveling up on a daily basis, and you're also learning how to manage people. Manage the demand that is completely different than being a property manager.
Yeah.
And that's what
Okay.
people have to understand. And neither one is right or wrong. You just have to sit back and go, what do I truly want?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. You said when you were a property manager, not a people manager, but when you were a property manager, you said you knew at a point when you jumped into it that something was broken or that there was opportunity there. And that's what you saw when you started Rosenbaum. So when you look at traditional property management and the model that it is, even today, what parts do you think are completely broken? And why do most owners ignore fixing those things?
First, the property management company does not put expectations down like they should. They just don't.
Okay.
9 times out of 10. That's why churn is so high in the industry. Um, I think expectations kills deals every single day. But I don't, as I've interviewed and talked to a lot of property management companies, property managers are never trained on actually being able to talk to investors. There's a big disconnect. You have a property manager that goes, I'm a property manager. I manage the property. No, 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 no. You manage the biggest asset of that individual. That individual bought that asset nine, even if they own just one. After an amount of time, that person that owns that house is very, very big asset to them. Think about it. The average cost of a house is $450,000 here in Arizona, depending on where you live. If that's the case, their net worth once that's paid off is $450,000 plus whatever. And so what you're doing is you're an asset manager. You're helping that person build generational wealth because that is the golden goose that never stops giving. But property managers, they think they're talking maintenance or tenants or like little bitty stuff. And in reality, they're talking growth strategy. They're talking how does this asset help you at the end of the year? How does this go down to your kids? That's why on a monthly basis, we actually do a webinar for our owners. We educate them on this. We bring on our estate planners. We bring on our CPAs. We bring on these big people to go, hey, look, this house is so much more than a house. It's an asset that can be given for generations.
Love that. What have you seen? Like, so it's all about the communications and the expectations you set, and then the mindset shift you create, right? But what do you think? Does it need to start at the beginning? Does this start 6 months in? Like, when are you implementing these things so that they don't churn out and they realize what the opportunity they have in front of them is?
The BDM has to be trained. The person that is the first person that talks to that prospective owner has to be able to talk in a way that understands the investment, has to be able to set the expectations so clear that they understand and they build trust. If that first person is not building trust, that whole relationship is not good. And like you asked before, why don't you think the owners are doing the maintenance? Why do you think there's a disconnect there? Because first step, that person that's trying to sell that contract is not putting that expectation down.
Yeah.
And they're not going, hey, if you're not willing to do this, then you're not willing to actually keep a resident. If you're not willing to keep a resident, then you don't understand what this asset can do for you.
I love that. I think something we argue here at Rent Scale is your business development manager is your first impression and should be able to speak like an asset manager. Your second impression is your onboarding, and that's with your PMs. And are they speaking that language? And how are you communicating at the beginning there? And what does that process look like? And that's something we found is also really important is that second impression and what you do once they sign.
Oh, 100%. So we're a little bit different on that aspect. We found that our BDMs and our operations used to hit heads. And so our BDMs actually keep the properties until they're 75% occupied.
Okay,
They do the onboarding. They have an assistant.
great.
And so they just brought on 81 units. And so I'm like, okay, what's the occupancy rate? What I found is all of a sudden the BDM doesn't bring on stuff they didn't like because
Yeah,
they're
they have to
like,
deal with
oh, I
it.
have to deal with this owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So we put a little bit of a barrier before handing it off to the client success manager. And that's what we call our property managers or client success managers instead. We're
Okay.
changing the verbiage. Um, we did asset management and then went to client success because we found that property managers, I feel like as we had hired a lot, it brought a different property manager. Property managers are high eyes, and a lot of times they struggle to tell you what's need to be said, and they want to tell you what you want to hear instead of what needs to be said.
I love that. So maybe tailoring into this, I don't know, maybe going a completely different direction. We'll see here. What do you think is a best in practice property management, strategy or system that is dead, and how should we replace it?
Ooh, that's a really good question. What system is dead, and should we replace it?
Yeah,
That's the
should we
question, right?
replace it or what do we replace it with?
Um, I think the system. I'm going to call it a system. And I think the system in property management that is dead, that people don't understand that is the most important, is training the team.
Yeah.
I think, and I've talked to a lot of property management. They're like, oh, yeah, I have a training program. I have an onboard. What is that? Oh, they sit with me for a day. I'm like, I think that is the biggest downfall to our industry.
So how do we make that better? And like, I assume you mean training for every role, whether they're a business development manager or whether they're in onboarding or whether they're a PM or they're a maintenance coordinator. But how do we do more than just, when I was in the metals industry, I remember a completely different language. Like you have to learn stainless and aluminum language that I didn't even know existed, right? And I think property management can be the same. And I was told to go in the back and read a book and then go shadow somebody for 2 weeks. That was my onboarding into metals. And I think it's very similar here is like, go check out some of the fair housing laws and the local regulations. Here's a website, and then just shadow this person for 2 weeks. So how do we create better systems around training our people?
That is, I think that's the number one question that everybody should be asking themselves. I love that you asked this question. I'm really passionate about it. I started researching the big companies. Apple. I walked in with my son one day. He broke his iPad after like 30 days of a brand new iPad. And he was like, Mom, will you take me? I'm like, I'll take it, but I'm not paying for that. And he's like, oh, it won't cost that much. So when we talked and they're like, oh, it's $1,000. And my son's like, paying for that. I'm like, okay. But this guy was standing there. He had a smile on his face. And I said, hey, how do you like working for Apple? He goes, oh, it's the best place in the world. I'm like, okay, great. You get to stand around. And I said, well, why? And so we started talking. I said, tell me about your training. And he said, for the first 30 days, I sit and I do book work. And I learn about their company, why they exist, what they believe in, and all their products. And then the second 30 days, I shadow every position. And then the next 30 days, someone shadows me. And I sat there and I looked at that and I said, property management's a domino effect. And I actually spoke about this at on a broker. It's a domino effect. But how many times do we just put someone in a seat, train them for a little bit, and then they have no clue the workings of every position? So what we do is we bring them in, they sit with my number two, they learn about our company, they learn about our core values. Even though they've heard about them during hiring, we go over it all again. Onboarding, they hear about the company, the core values, the mission statement, the vision statement. And we go through that heavily, why those even exist. And then they sit with a person in every single position. And people are like, that's a lot of money to spend. I said, yeah, but where do you build trust in the person you just hired? You build trust in the hiring, onboarding, training process. And how many times, why do you think the turnover rate in property management is 33% higher than any other sector? Because I hate to say it, but we all are really horrible about training. So then I went to Starbucks and I'm like, okay, Starbucks, they're gonna have like nothing in training, right? It's coffee, it's not that big a deal. And they said, no, we have a 30, 60, 90 days. They spend more money on their training than their marketing. And I'm going, that's a lot. And then I went to Chick-fil-A and I sat there and I watched them because I consider them the SWAT team of like fast food. They're like amazing.
Yeah.
How many people they can put through and everything.
Yeah.
I sit and watch and
And they're still so
I
nice
asked
to them
them,
too.
oh, they go through etiquette training, not
Mm.
just training, but etiquette training. That's why you'll never hear someone in the fast food line say, oh, they say my pleasure. They don't say no problem. They don't say because Chick-fil-A has realized words that are spoken say so much more than actually the word itself. And so they do a 30, 60, 90. And so we're actually completely overhauling our training right now, and it's actually going to go longer. But every position is viewed, and then they sit with someone and they shadow their position, and then someone shadows them, and then they have someone they can ask questions for. I think that is our biggest downfall, and that is what every single company should be spending so much time, so much effort creating and developing.
For every role in their company.
Reroll.
I love
And
it.
what you said, what's interesting, people are like, that's daunting. Yeah, but how are you supposed to grow? Because when the person you just brought on that you did with all the knowledge in your head and they quit, then you got to do it again and
Mm.
again and again. Trust me, because I did it wrong. That's why I was like, I got to start researching the big companies and how they do it.
So you were doing it wrong. You saw this gap in your own company. You saw that like hiring became like a huge chore because you had to start over and it was like you lost so much time. Is that all correct? Like you train this person, they're with you for a year, and then you're like, all that information is gone out the door and I have to start over again. But with the proper training, it doesn't take that long to get somebody on board. I like that.
That, but also they stay longer.
Yeah,
People
retention.
want to be trained. People want to have a roadmap to success. People want to understand how to win.
Yeah.
So the only way to make sure they feel like they can win is through onboarding, training, developing them. And so, yeah, I did it wrong for so long. But then I saw, because usually what happens is if you have a PM and then you hire another PM, the PM trains the PM. And so what happens is the people in the company start feeling like all they're doing is training because it's a revolving door. And so I was like, okay, that has to change. And so that's why we've spent so much time and effort in developing and training programs and developing programs and roadmaps. We call them roadmaps to success so they know how to win.
I love that. I think it's so important and I do think it's underutilized. Okay, so when you started Rosenbaum Realty, you were at how many doors? Zero? I mean, did you start with an acquisition or zero doors? All right, we're at zero doors. When you start, what are you at today? What have you grown to?
967 today.
What points in that journey were really hard? Like, what were the thresholds, if you remember them? Were there points in your journey that it was like, it was really hard to get up to 300? And then it like kind of coasted itself up to six. And then we hit another plateau. Like, do you remember those plateaus and those moments where you had to like, whoa, we're stagnant, we're still, we got to do something different?
Yes. Um, well, when we started, we grew 100 units the first year, 200 units the second year. It was major growth, but that was all word of mouth, no advertising. And then 2017 hit, and I'm gonna tell you, we coasted. Like my husband was like, "Hey, let's go travel, let's go play. We could retire, not a big deal." And I'm like, I was dying inside because I love to travel. Don't get me wrong, but I love to create business and I love to create opportunity. And so in 2023, I realized um, I was still kind of on the back seat, and I realized our team was here, but we weren't shored up in a way that we could grow. And we decided we've never advertised still. And in 2024, we decided it's time to advertise, it's time to grow. In 2024, of December 31st, we were at 564 units. As of today, we're at 967. 2024, we shored up every single person in the company. Everybody told me I was crazy. You're overhired, Tiff. Your DLER is lower than most. And I said, I don't care. I don't care. I know what I'm doing. As I sat with my advisory board that I created, they were excited because they were okay. Now you've gone into growth mode. You've shored up everybody. You know that you're okay. You'll not have to go back into a position if someone quits, or if you have to let someone go. I said, no, we're strong now. And they said, okay, now put the money behind it. And so we've grown 400 units in the quarter one plus 1 month.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's where we're headed. And so we're putting a lot of we spent about 5 grand a month on advertising. I hired a social media / marketing director to handle it all. And then we said it's time to growth. But what happens is I think the biggest issue in the industry is, hey, let's grow, but they don't like BDMs. Um, if you want a BDM without having any funnel of leads, I think it's BDMs die. They're like, wait, what? You just want me to cold call all day? It's not a win. And at least that's what we found. Like they want to know that the company's putting something behind it and it's not just them going out. I imagine you've seen this like a lot.
Yeah.
And so people are like, hey, I want to grow, but their team's not actually strong enough to grow, first of all. So then they churn on the back end. And so that's why we shored up first and made sure the team was strong before we truly said, okay, it's time to put money behind it and grow as fast and as hard as we can.
So I love that. And yes, Tiffany, you're right. It's very hard to onboard a BDM without any leads at all. That's a very challenging thing to do. And I think a lot of owners have the expectation of like, they're going to go out and they're going to find all the leads for me and everything's going to be dandy. And I'm like, okay, but we need to have like a mix. There's an all bound strategy, or at least that's what we call it. It's inbound, it's outbound, and it's next bound. And those three are really important all together. So I love this. And I love like you grew steadily really until 600 doors and then you coasted at 600 doors for a bit and then it dropped down, right? So what was that moment that you realized? You said you were traveling, you said that you were dying inside because you like growing things, you like building businesses. So was there a moment that you can recall where you realized, I'm going to burn this entire thing down if I want to grow? Like, I have to burn this down if I actually want to get bigger.
Last year.
Last year, was there a moment? Like, was there something that occurred that like clicked in your brain and you were like, dang, somebody said something or did something?
Wait, is it okay if I go religious a little bit on this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a God-fearing person. I have I'm religious, and I truly felt in the last 2 years that if you know the story of burying your talents, and over and over and over, I would hear, you're only at 20% of your capacity. What the hell are you doing? And maybe this was me, whatever you want to call it, but I was like, I'm not doing anything. We've been blessed, and I'm like sitting here. Like, it's time. It's time to go forward and build the team as big as we can and help and impact the lives around us. Because if we stay small, how many lives are we impacting? If we
Mm.
go big and we do it right, we can impact so many people. And so it just over and over, I felt, if I want to call it depressed, that I wasn't using what we've been given to really impact the world around us. And so it took me a little bit because I'm a little stubborn. Because again, my culture background is like, oh, the man should take charge, the man can take charge. Daniel's great, but when it comes to visionary or if it comes to we have different roles. We didn't realize we were in the wrong roles.
Mm.
And then I said, I want to grow. Let me take it. Let me blow it up. Let me do it. Now, when you do that though, I'm not gonna lie, there's days that I'm like, am I gonna sink the ship?
Yeah, well, yeah, we all have
Am
those.
I going to, am I, when you bring on 400 units and you're not churning, like we don't churn. Our churn is below 5% at all times. Every year it's always been below 5. And so there's days that I'm like, okay, 400 units, I'm stretching my team. What do I need to do next? So every day I'm looking at the org chart. What's changing? We're changing so rapidly. We, my number two goes, Tiff, can I see the org chart again? Because I'm confused where everybody's at. So I do company addresses every quarter. And so I try to make sure. And then every week I come in and go, okay, here's the change, here's what's going on. And everything has to go through my number two, though, before it goes to the team, because I'm a change agent. If you know what a change agent that is a high D personality, if they're not careful, they can rampage their company faster than the company can stay up with them. And so I had to learn real quick. I needed a number two that was a lot slower, but very detailed, that would slow me down. I'd speed him up. We argue all the time, but it works. So yeah, there's days that I come in and I'm like, am I doing what's right? And then I have to go, okay, hold up. I know what I'm doing. And let's move forward and let's keep going. Because as you're growing fast, sometimes it can get scary. Like, because you have to start going, okay, who do I need next? Who do I have to hire next? And you have to know that the people you need in place 6 months down the road. You're no longer looking for today. You're looking 6 months, a year down the road, and you're starting to hire before because you're level up people that you need, GMs, regionals, CEOs, CFOs, all those take a lot of time to hire. It's not overnight.
No, they take forever to hire. So,
Yeah.
I've heard you mention a couple times that you grew up in a very traditional family, and the man was the person that was supposed to do the business stuff, bring in the bacon, if you will. Do you think that that's a belief that you had to completely break down and shatter you in order for you to move forward? That it was okay for you to go in and be the visionary and take that role on? Like, was that a belief that had to shatter in order for Rosenbaum to break through that ceiling?
100%. I fought with it for about 5 years because I felt like I was supposed to sit back. I was supposed to be home with the kids at a certain time every day. And neither one is right or wrong. Like, if you want to be staying home with the kids, more power to you. Love it.
Yeah.
I am not that woman. I'm not. I first of all, I think I would be a worse mom. That's just my opinion. And so about 3 years ago, I sat down and said, what do I really want? What do I want? And then 2023, I sat down more and I'm like, what do I truly want? And everything kept coming back that I want to grow and I want to create and I want to impact so many people. So then in 2024 is when I was like, okay, it's time. And so in 2024, I shored up the team, spent a lot of money on the team, um, knew what I was doing, but also 2024 was incredibly scary because the money was going out faster than the money was coming in because of what I was doing. I was replacing people that needed to be replaced. I was getting the right people in the right seats. I was doing all the foundational work. But sometimes when you're doing the foundational work, you gotta be careful. So I was spending a lot of money. We were fine, but at the same time, I was really scared. I was like, "Am I gonna sink the ship?"
How do you
Did not do
keep
it.
Yeah, how do you keep going? Like, I think this is a lot of entrepreneurs, and I know that, like, there's times for sure with me that I felt this exact same way where I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna sink the ship? I'm spending so much money. What if I'm wrong about this? What if every decision I'm making is awful and I do sink the ship? And not only my ship, but everybody else's ship that's attached to me. So, how do you keep going and push through that as an entrepreneur and keep your path blazing even when you have the absolute biggest doubts and the biggest weight on your shoulders from all the employees?
Yeah, because you're the ecosystem. You're the ecosystem. You're the livelihood. That's why entrepreneurship is not meant for everybody. And that's why I always come back. You gotta ask what you truly want.
Mm.
And so last year, I was it last year, yeah, at the beginning of 2024, I read Elon Musk's book.
Mhm.
And he said I had enough money for 3 rockets to go off. And if I didn't make it, I was going to go under. Rocket 1 blew up, did not work. Rocket 2 blew up and did not work. Rocket 3 blew up and did not work. He sat there and he had a choice to make. Do I quit or do I figure it out? He decided to figure it out, and look at him now.
Yep.
And so when 2024 was happening and I was spending more money, there were many nights and many days that I was like, if I sink this, what's going to happen? And I knew I'd be okay, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, so either I got to push through and figure out how far we can go, or I need to stop beating myself up, wondering if it's going to happen. And so as I read that book, I said, I don't care what happens. I'm going to push forward. I know we can do it. And even still, I still question it, but it made me think, like, if I quit now, am I ever going to know what I'm capable of? Am I ever going to know what my team's capable of? Am I ever going to know, how many people we can impact? And that's why our vision is to help 5,000 families create generational wealth and lasting legacies through exceptional property management and real estate.
I love that. That's got to be like your tagline or on your VTO or something you guys are reviewing
On our
often.
BTO. Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
All right, so
100%.
that was a huge risky bet that you took to redo your systems, to retrain your people, to really blow up some stuff in your business in order for you to grow, right? So I want to shift to the industry as a whole. I see, and you can tell me if you don't see this, but I see that this industry is obsessed with playing it safe and blowing stuff up is not in their nature. So, how do you innovate in an industry that seems obsessed with playing it safe?
Did you ask this one? Um, I think it comes back to the question of what the entrepreneur truly wants. And the reason being is I come back to that question is because 9 times out of 10, people became into property management to manage properties for people, and they love that. But they complain about it because of the fact that I'm dealing with owners and no one tenants. So I come back to the question, do you want to run a company or do you want a job? And there's two different things. If someone wants to run a company, they have to be willing to blow things up. And our industry does play it safe because people are naturally scared to lose what they have. And our mind is actually designed to protect us. So unless you are every single day trying to pass those barriers and try to grow the mind and try to realize that you can do things that no one sees possible, you will always play it safe. But if you play it safe, you'll never know what you're capable of. That's why, okay, so I hope I don't get backlash on this, but that's why my board, my advisor board, not one person is in my industry
Yeah.
because I wanted, and some of my board members, every single one of them are on the verge of a billion. And one of my board members, and oh hell, my board meetings are intense. Like I stress for weeks. My January board meeting, we had just revamped, and I strategically put this board together, knowing that it was going to stress me out and push me past my comfort zone. And my January meeting happened, and at the end of my meetings, I always rate it. I'm like, hey, I want to know how we're doing. And one of the guys, and I knew he was going to be tough on me, but I didn't know he was going to be this tough. And one of my guys at the end of the meeting said, Tiff, that was a freaking two. Get your crap together. I'm not happy with this. This is what needs to happen by next board meeting. I want to see this. He was really tough on me. Now, after the board meeting that night, he spoke to me for about an hour and a half about all the things that needed to change and what he saw and how we could help. And at the end of the phone call, he said, now realize this, the day you pass me up, I said, I laughed. I was like, okay, um, you need to fire me. And he told me something right here that changed my outlook. He goes, you need to fire me quick and you need to say, we're still friends, but at the end of the day, I need someone greater that can push me farther. And when he said that, I said, who's in our circles?
Mm, yeah.
And so every time I get with a circle or I'm trying to push past my barriers, I look at people that are pushing past their barriers.
Mm.
You need to be around people that are going to push you to the next level. If you want to get out of your comfort zone, because it's not comfortable, it sucks sometimes. You got to get people that will tell you the truth and not just make you feel good.
So you need a coach. You need someone who's going to be there to constantly, even when you think you've learned everything, even when you think you've put everything right in place, you need someone who's going to be tough on you and say, this is where you're not doing it. And then as soon as you outgrow that person, you move on to the next. Is that fair?
100%.
Love it.
This is, I don't want to get backlash here either, but I'm going to say it. If you're hiring a coach, ask for their dang pedigree chart.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said like everybody on my advisory board, I literally interviewed them and they interviewed me.
Hmm.
And I said, "What have you done? Where are you at? And where can you take me?"
Yep.
And people are like, "You interview them that hard?" I'm like, Why would I
Why
not?"
not? Oh, we do that for our coaches. I mean, we have coaches here at Rent Scale and we do the same
Mhm.
thing. We just outgrew, don't put this in the article, one of our coaches, and we have a new one coming in. But the interview is so important. Where do they come from? What industry knowledge do they have? What outside of industry knowledge do they have? What do I need at my company? I think that that's so important. And I love what you said. Like, you have to have a coach who's sitting there pushing you to be better and better. And you have to innovate. And I think that's something we've seen here at Rent Scale. And we're big believers that we don't want people to play it safe. We want people to burst out the top of what the little bubble of the industry is and do things that companies like Apple and Starbucks and Chick-fil-A are doing. And that's one of the reasons we're hosting the summit. That's exactly what that is. So I love it. That's great. Okay, we'll wrap up here. Just a couple fun questions. If somebody shadowed you for 24 hours, what would shock them about something that you do?
I think they would be shocked how much I work. I get up at 4 a.m. I go for a run. I work out. I ruck. I get my kids ready. I come to work. I'm at work by 7:15. I am here. I don't break for lunch unless it's a networking thing, where I know that it's a win-win. I turn down a lot of meetings because time is very valuable.
Yeah.
Uh, I've learned that I need to be the master of my time, not the time I'm master me. And I don't go home until about 5:30 or 6. I work a good 10, 12 hours days right now as we're in growth mode. And then I go home and be with my kids. And then sometimes I go back to work at night.
Mhm.
I think they would also be shocked how much I spend on leveling up my mind.
Mhm.
And that I don't think anybody understands how strong and how capable their mind is. And if they master that, they can do anything they put their mind to.
I love that. Okay, cool. All right, last one. What do you think is the biggest lie that entrepreneurs tell themselves about scaling? And what happens when they finally wake up?
It's gonna be easy. I actually had someone tell me this. I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna scale. I'm gonna work 4 hours a day. And I said, "You tell me how that works out for me." You about a month later, that person comes back and goes, "I wanted to work 4 hours a day. It's not working." I said, "You've got a little toddler that you're trying to develop into a good human being, pretty much." And I know I shouldn't put business to toddlers, but that's kind of how it is. You leave it alone, it's gonna blow up something.
Yeah,
And so, um, yeah, I think you gotta work hard and you're gonna work longer than you think. If you're wanting to be a true entrepreneur and you really want to grow, you are the captain of the ship. What captain are you to develop the team to be able to be the rocket fuel behind your business to get it to the next level?
I love it. That's great. Well, thank you, Tiffany. This has been fantastic. All right, we'll cut there, but I have one question for you. Like, for me, this is for me. When you shifted in marketing, I didn't feel like this question flowed well with the story like that we were talking about. But when you shifted and you said you didn't do any paid ads and then you hired someone into the marketing role, you hired someone to generate leads, and now you spend, what'd you say, $5,000 a month on ads? Is that right?
We see we've spent $5,000 a month.
Okay. So when did you realize that traditional marketing wasn't going to cut it anymore? And like, what made you force that shift to paid advertising and not just word of mouth?
Because I hired BDMs and tried to put them in a seat with no with no leads. I failed every which way, Jennifer. If you want to know failure, man, I'll raise my hand and I'll tell you all the time. With team, with BDMs, real estate, whatever it is, I have failed every which way and I realized I wanted to be a business owner and I didn't want to step in the seat. So we spend PPC 5,000. We also do mailers. Some of our biggest clients have come from mailers.
Yeah.
Um, we also do social media. We also do events.
Hmm.
And so I have this person handle it, and then there's leads coming in. And so now it works a lot better. But I wasn't wanting to manage that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So you're saying for you guys, it was an and thing. It's not a business development manager or a marketing manager. It is a business development manager and a marketing manager. And it is, like I said, all bound. That's what you found.
Yeah, I think you need both. I think you need both.
Okay.
You need marketing and sales.
Okay.
If you want to grow, now if you don't want to grow, then don't put the money behind it because it's cheap. I
Sure.
mean, it's very expensive. It's not something that you're gonna go. But in this industry, things have changed. It's no longer that you can go out and go, hey, you better be top of your line. You better have good Google reviews. People look on Google reviews more than anything now.
Yep.
And if you don't have good Google reviews, they're not gonna come to you. So we hone in on our reputation, our sales, and our marketing, and it's like a triangle.
Flywheel. You gotta have every element of the flywheel in order for those things to all churn. That's great. Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I know that your time is insanely valuable. I greatly appreciate you hopping on with me, especially not feeling well. So I hope you feel 10 times better next week. I hope I feel 10 times better next week. But I really appreciate it. This has been so fun.
Appreciate you, Jennifer. You are definitely an example. So I appreciate all y'all do, and let me know if you need anything. Seriously,
Yeah,
and hopefully you feel better, and don't stay sick.
I know,
It's not
right?
fun.
Maybe I'll get some sleep later tonight and that'll help. That's important.
Yes, sleep's important. All
Yeah.
right,
All right, bye.
thanks. Bye.